Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's a beautiful day here in New York. We welcome all those who are here in person as well as all who are joining us from their homes, wherever they are. It's a beautiful day. It's also a difficult day. We woke up this morning to a new era in our country, a challenging time of the reversal of rights, of taking back things that for so many years we've taken for granted, the right of a woman to choose and to make decisions about her own body. And now we live with the fear about other rights that might be reversed by this Supreme Court politicized. And so we come this morning carrying all of the gratitude we normally carry on Shabbat for another week of life, for all we have learned, for the accomplishments of the previous week. And we carry this morning also this heaviness, and try to dig deep into our faith, to find comfort in our faith and in our commitment to step up and to act. And so we come here to find vision and guidance, to ask God to show us the way and to give us the resilience and the strength to do what we must do, to restore our country to fuller openness and to fuller freedom for all. This is also Pride Shabbat, and so we also celebrate all the accomplishments in the rights for LGBTQ people, which we do not take for granted, which were long fought and achieved with tremendous suffering and not with few deaths along the way. Page 99, Modeh Ali Lefanecha, carrying all of that, we open our tefillah. מודה אני לפניך רוח חי וקיים שחזרת בנשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך שהחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך די 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 היי 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 Page 102 at the bottom. הריני מקבל עליי מצוות הבורא ואהבת לרעך כמוך הריני מקבל עליי מצוות הבורא ואהבת לרעך כמוך. I invite you to rise if you're able, page 103 or page 10 in Sim Shalom, ברכות השחר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לשכל והביא להבחין בין יום ובין לילה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בצלמו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בן חורין. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם פוקח עברים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מלביש ערומים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מתיר אסורים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם זוקף כפופים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוקר את צל המים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המלכים מצעדי גבר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה לי כל צורכי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוזר ישראל ויגבורה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוטר ישראל ותפארה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם הנותן ליעב כוח. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המעביר חבל שינה מנת וממי עפפה ירצו מלפניו לאבותיי.
יהי רצון יופנך אדוני אבינו
אבינו היום וביום לכן ופזור עמים בעיניך ועיניך ורוע וגרום לך צדיקים טובים.
חכים מאדם רע ומחבר רע בדם.
הותננו היום ובכל יום לכן ולחסד ולרחמים בעיניך ובעיני כל רואינו ותגמלנו חסדים טובים. ברוך אתה אדוני גומל חסדים טובים לעמו ישראל.
May be seated. We'll continue with מזמור שיר חנוכת הבית לדוד, page 120 or 50 in שים שלום. מזמור שיר חנוכת הבית לדוד, אדוני לא שבעתי אליך ותרפאני, אדוני ילכה לישון, אשר תיתן מיד דיבור. זמרו בעל אמות לעולם, אדוני ברצונך האמנתי.
בעל אמות יהי רצונך.
לך אדוני אקרא ואל אדוני אתחנן. מה בצפה דמי בריתי אל שחר. היודך עפה היגיד עמיתך שמע וחונני אדוני היה עוזר לי. הפכת מספדי אל מחולי פיתחת שק ותעזרני שמחה. נזמר כבוד ולא ידום אדוני אלוהי לעולם עודך. Monos Kaddish, page 121. Those in mourning, those who mark your side, please rise, and those who are on Zoom reciting Kaddish, you can unmute now. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה כרותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה, שירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. Just one thing before Baruch She'amar. Last night we started trying something a little different in terms of the sound dynamics in the room. We have been very loud, and for the last few months or years, and we have not had the blessing of hearing the kahal sing and participate. And the louder it was, the less the kahal seemed to step up and participate. So Dimitrios and Dan and us, we've worked on now trying to lower the volumes so that everybody will step up. It's a re-education, right? We used to sing all together and sing in community, and then people started, maybe also because of the pandemic, when, many months that people were not here, were at home by themselves, or just a few people at home, and we were sort of in a more prayer performative type of a situation, which was the only thing we could do at the time, but we're no more in those days. And so we ask people now to step up, to sing loud, to sing comfortably, to not be shy, to participate, to hear yourself and the people around you, and to hear us, and for us to hear you, and to form this wonderful prayer dynamic that is participatory, that is beautiful, and that includes everybody who wants to be in. So we now rise with that on page 122. Please exercise that muscle and don't forget throughout the tefillah.
Baruch Shema v'yaolam Baruch Hu Moshe Baruch Hu
חי לעד וקיים לנצח, ברוך כל ומציל ברוך שמו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם האל, אב הרחם לפי עמו משובח ופועל בשמו. יחיד חיי העולמים, מלך משובח ופועל ידי השבח גדול.
יחיד חי העולמים, מלך משובח ומפועל יד שמו הגדול. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מהולל בתשבחות.
You may be seated. We continue on page 132. הודו לאדוני כי טוב. הודו לאדוני כי טוב, כי לעולם חסדו. הודו לאלוהי האלוהים, כי לעולם חסדו.
הודו לאדוני האדונים,
כי לעולם חסדו.
לעושה נפלאות גדולות לבדו,
כי לעולם חסדו.
לעושה השמיים בתבונה,
כי לעולם חסדו.
לאותה הארץ על המים,
כי לעולם חסדו. לעושה שלט ביום, כי לעולם חסדו.
אתה ירח בכוכבים, לממשלות בלילה.
כי לעולם חסדו.
למכה מצרים בגבוריהם.
כי לעולם חסדו.
ויוצא ישראל מתוכם.
כי לעולם חסדו.
ביד חזקה ובזרוע נטויה.
כי לעולם חסדו. וגוזר ים סוף. כי לעולם חסדו והעביר ישראל. כי לעולם חסדו.
ונהיה פרעה לחדו וים סוף.
כי לעולם חסדו.
להוליך עמו במדבר.
כי לעולם חסדו.
למכה מלכים גדולים.
כי לעולם חסדו.
ויהרוג מלכים אדירים.
כי לעולם חסדו. לסיחון מלך האמורי. כי לעולם חסדו. ולעוג מלך הבשן. כי לעולם חסדו.
ונתן עצם.
כי לעולם חסדו.
נחלה לישראל.
כי לעולם חסדו.
שבשיף לנו זכר לנו.
כי לעולם חסדו.
ויפקדנו מבשרנו.
כי לעולם חסדו. נותן לחם לכל בשר. כי לעולם חסדו. אל השמיים. כי לעולם חסדו. It's like a new congregation. No, really. I mean, it's like a completely different experience. Where have we been for the last 2 years? It's like, I mean, it was beautiful, but this is like completely different experience. So don't step down now, okay? Stay there. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, 134.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון.
להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות.
עלי עשור ועלינה ועלי עיון וכינון.
כי שימחתני אדוני בפעולך ומעשה ידיך רנן.
מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני מעולם כל מחשבותיך.
איש בעל לא ידע, צין לא יבין את זאת.
בפרח רשעים כמו עשב ויציצו כל פועלי אבן.
הישמדה מטה ותמרום לעולם אדוני.
כי הנה אויביך אדוני, כי הנה אויביך יאבדו.
התפרדו כל פועלי אבן.
ותרן כרם קרני בלותי בשן וענן.
ותבטני בשורי פקע ממעלה מרים תשמענה אוזני.
צדיק התמה יפרח כארז ובנות יזכה.
שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו.
עוד ינומון בשיבה דשנים רעננים יהיו.
להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולת בו.
אדוני מלאכי ולבש לבש אדוני עשית זהב.
אף תיכון תבל פעל תימון.
נכון כיסך מאז מעולם אתה.
עשהו נרות אדוני, עשהו נרות קולה.
יסבו נרות תוך ים מקולות מים רבים.
אדירים משבר ים, אדיר במרום אדוני.
עדותיך נאמרו מאוד, לביתך נא בקודש.
לביתך נא בקודש אדוני. יורד גלים, Ashrei on page 136 or page 80 in Sim Shalom. Ashrei Yoshevetech אשרי העם שככה לו
אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו
אשרי אשרי יושבי ביתך אשרי לדוד רוממך אלוהי המלך בברך שמך לעולם ועד
בכל ימיו ברכך ולך שמך לעולם ועד
גדול אדוני מולל מאוד ולגדולתו אין חקר
גדול אלוהי שבח מעשיך גבורתך יגידו
הדר כבוד הודיך ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך
וזוזרותיך יאמרו גדולך אספרנה
זכר רב טובך יביאו וצדקתך ירננו
אנו ברכו אדוני רחמך טוב חסד
טוב אדוני לכל ורחמיו על כל מעשיו
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך וחסידיך יברכוך
כבוד מלכותך יאמר וגבורתך ידברו
להודיע לבני אדם גבורתה וכבוד אדם מלכותו
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים זוקף לכל הכפופים
אין יכול אליך יסבר ואתה נותן להם לתאכלם ביתו
פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכוך רצון
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסיד בכל מעשיו
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו לכל אשר יקראו באמת
רצון יראה ויעשה ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם
שומע אדוני את כל הבא ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו יברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד
אנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם הללויה
הללויה
הללויה הללויה
הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, Page 145, Nishmat, or 334.
נשמת כוחי, תברך את שמך, אדוני אלוהינו.
נשמת כוחי, תברך את שמך, אדוני אלוהינו. דידיני
המנהג עולם וחסד
אדוני לא ינום ולא יישן, המעורר ישנים ובקצנף דמים ובמסיח דמים.
ינופינו מלא שירה קיים השנה.
לך לבדיך אנחנו מודים.
נשרי שמיים ברגלינו קלות.
רגלינו
ממצרים גאלתנו אדוני אלוהינו מבית עבדים פתתנו בארצנו. אל תדשנו אדוני אלוהינו רוח הנשמה שנפחת באפינו ובלשון אשר שמת. כי חופתך יודע כל אשר. כל עצמותי תאמר מיד מלך ומי שלכם אל הגדול הגדול. נהללך ונשבחך ונברך ונברך את שם קודשך.
ברכי נפשי את אדוני, דידיי דיי דיי בתעצומות עוזך, הגדול בכבוד שמך, גיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא,
שוכן על מרום וקדוש שמו.
וכתוב לנו צדיקים באדוני, לישרות נבע תהילה.
לפי ישרים תתהלל,
דברי צדיקים תתברך,
בלשון חסידות תתרומם,
ובקרב קדושים תתקדש.
מקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו, ולא יבותנו אמותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, להלל ולקלס על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך.
השתבח שמך לעד מלכנו האדם
ברכות והודות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני אל מלך גדול ותשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוכה בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי העולמים.
יתקדל ויתקדש שם רבה,
אמן.
ועל מה נברא כראותה ועמליך מלכותה, חייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, ועגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא בריקה, אלא מן כל ברכתה שירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמילן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. ברכו on page 149. ולבנה ממכון שבטה לעולם כולו כל ישוע שברא ומידת רחמים
ובצובו מחדש בכל יום תמיד
המלך המלכות ולמען עולם
אדון עוזנו צבא מסכבנו מרגנו שלנו
ועדנו
אין כרכך
אין כרכך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומדומה לך, אין כרכך נונה אלוהים בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי עולם הבא, אפס בלתך תועלנו את המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. Page 151 or 342 in Sim Shalom. השמש ויזרחו והבהית כצורת הלבנה שבח נותנים לו צבע שבח נותנים לו צבע תפארת וגדולה סרפים ואופנים סרפים ואופנים וחיות לקודש לפיכך יפארו
מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
תתברך מושיענו על כל שבח מעשה ידיך ועל מאורר שעשית יפארו חסלה תתברך סולינו מלכנו ומלכנו ושים ושתרון שבח מלכנו סר משלת עם אשר משלת על כולם ומדים ברומונה משמים ברחת הכל זה
כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים וכולם נושאים לרצון כולם וכולם פותחים את פיהם מקדושה וטהרה בשירה וזמרה מברכים משבחים פרים ומרצים ומקדישים וממליכים
שם האל המלך הגדול הגיבור והנור הקדוש הוא
וכולם מקבלים עליהם על מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצם בנחת רוח בשפה ברורה ונעימה קדושה כולם כאחד עונים ועומדים ביראה
קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות ולא כל הארץ כבודו
והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנסים לעומת שרפים לעומתם משבחים ואומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני
המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית כמונו שעורים גדולים כי לעולם חסדו אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו ערן אורו ברוך אתה אדוני יוצא המאורות
אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו חמלה עמלת עלינו
חן הגדולה ותרח עמלת עלינו אבינו מלכנו ואבותינו ואבותינו שבת הקודש
לשמור על מצוות לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך אבינו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ תוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת כל עם ולשון וקרבתנו לשמך גדול סלע באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה ברוך אתה בוחר עמו ישראל אדוני
עבדיך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבביך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשופטך ובקומך, וקשרת מאות על ידיך, והיו תותפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך. היום. אדוני אלוהיכם
אמת ויציב ונכון וקיים וישר ונאמן ואהוב וחביב ונחמד ונעים ונורא ואדיר מתוקם מקובל וטוב ויפה הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד אמת אלוהי עולם על כן רצו יעקב מגן אישנו לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים וכיסו נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת.
אבותינו ואמותינו גואלנו, גואל אמותינו יותנו, צו ישועתנו, עודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך.
בעזרת אבותינו, אתה ומעולם.
בעזרת אבותינו, אתה ומעולם.
ממצרים גאלתנו
ממצרים גאלתנו אדוני אלוהינו, ותבדין תליצנו כל
וניסה גדול ונורא משפיל גאים ומגביה שפלים מוציא אסירים ופודה ענבים וחוזר דאלים שבה ולמה תהילות אל עליון ברוך ובורא משה ומרים ובני ישראל לך אנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואנו כולם
מי כמוך בעדים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף מלך
שירה חדשה שימחו גאולים לשמך על שפתיה יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Please rise, Sur Israel, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדחילו מלך יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. בעמידן, page 159. אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, האל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, קונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואמהות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך חוץ ומושיע ומגן. אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיים איתי מטריו להושיע, מוליד הטל, מחלקי לחיים בחסד, מחייב מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומציל אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, להישאר עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומגדול אליו, מלך מליט ומחייב, ומבטיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחייב מתים.
יקדש את שמך בעולם,
כשם שמקדישים אותו, בישמי מעלו, כתוב, היה נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך הארץ, כבודו. זה כל רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, בינה נשים לעומת סרפים, לעומתם ברוך יומנו, ברוך כבוד.
ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם בעת תשכון. תתקדש ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור וגדול, לנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה ושפחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Nigun has so much, maybe seated, so much longing and so much beauty, and I feel that it matches the longing that we have often for something in our personal lives, today in particular for the country. The longing for the country we want and we feel is slipping further and further away. We long for the vision of this country that we hold, that we share, those of us here, with so many more, probably the majority of this nation, the vision that is slowly getting away from us. We long. But longing is not a bad thing. Longing is a very good thing. Because number one, it affirms that there's something that we love, that we care for. And that something that we care for in this is distance. The more the longing, the more we can measure the distance. And the more we can motivate ourselves to bring ourselves near, to bring that which we love and which we miss and which we long closer to us. So we need to long. We need to long. We need to long deep. And may the longing be the engine and the motivation for us to bring our country and the vision for our country near and to realize it soon.
Amen.
Page 167, Kaddish Shalom. Amen. Yesh merama bevarak, le'alam u'la'alaya yitbarach.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתדע ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה לאלה מן כה ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בירמה ואימרו
אמן. תתקבל צלות וראותון דכל ישראל קודם אבוהון דישמע ואמרו אמן.
אמן. יש נברא ורשמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
Shabbat Shalom to everyone who's with us again here in the community in the sanctuary, as well as those who are joining us online. Davening, page 168, Seder Hotzat Torah, or page 394. Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai, ve'ein k'ma'asecha.
מלכותך מלכות כל העולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. היטיבה ברצונך
עליון תראה חומות ירושלים כי לך לבד נתנו מלך אל וישראל
ויהי בנשוא הארון ויאמר משה קומה וינוסו אליך וינוסו משדך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ולבא אדוני מירושלים
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד כי כל בשמיים ובארץ כי כל בשמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא Page 365, מפיאל. מפיאל, מפיאל, יבורך ישראל. מפיאל, מפיאל, יבורך ישראל. אין אדיר קדוש, אין ברוך כבן עמלה, אין גדולה כתורה. אין דורשך כישראל, מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך ישראל, מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך ישראל, אין הדור קדוש, אין ותיק כבן עמרם, אין זכייה כתורה, אין חכמים כישראל. אין רחום כבן עמרם, אין שמירה כתורה, אין תומכך כישראל, מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך ישראל, מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך ישראל. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו לדום רגליו קדושו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו להר קודשו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. You may be seated. On this Shabbat of Pride, we sadly say goodbye to Grace, who has completed 2 years of fellowship of the Marshall Mayer Rabbinic Fellowship here at BJ. The first year was very difficult because it was exclusively on Zoom, and Grace was in North Carolina. She was far away. She was studying online at the seminary at JTS. And so we had the great blessing this year to have you in person and to work with you and to see you impact our community. We'll say a few words a little later of gratitude to you, but we are delighted to hear this Devar Torah and Pride Shabbat from our dear Grace Gleason.
Thank you, Roly. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
53 years ago, on June 28th, 1969, as some of us remember, the Stonewall uprisings marked a turning point. In the early morning hours, police raided the Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in Greenwich Village, arresting patrons with force. And patrons decided to resist. It catalyzed an already brewing movement for LGBTQ liberation in the United States. activists had laid the groundwork for advances in the basic rights of LGBTQ people in this country. And the next year, the first Pride, which is now as ubiquitous and assimilated as rainbow flag displays in every store and corporate parade floats, was then a radical and dangerous and countercultural and risky demonstration, a defiance of the status quo that sought to keep queer people silenced and closeted and targeted. How did we get from there to here? How did we go from a New York in which homosexuality was illegal to gay pride being celebrated at almost every level of power in our state? And at the same time, as has become heartbreakingly clear, how are we still so far from the original aspirations of the protest that each human being should be able to freely live their lives without fear of hate crimes, repression, and sudden revokings of their rights? In this week's Torah portion, Shalach Lecha, we have the story of the 12 scouts who venture into the land of Israel to report on the terrain and the conditions of the promised land that the Israelites think they are about to enter. The reports are mixed. 10 of the scouts warn that the inhabitants are giants and fierce warriors that the Israelites will not be able to conquer. But 2 scouts, Joshua and Caleb, insist that it is not too great to conquer. The Israelites who hear this report are a unique group of people. They are the generation that left Egypt. They are the generation that chose to cross the Red Sea into freedom, chased close behind by Pharaoh's warriors with walls of water closing in on them from each side. And this is the generation that has wandered and been hungry and received manna, been hungry again, walked with trepidation toward an uncertain future. Having been born into oppression, then getting a glimpse into what freedom feels like, they are propelled on their journey by the possibility of yet further liberation on the horizon. And so their response, we'll read in chapter 14, verse 1, was to weep. These people, this generation who had been through so much, cried loud cries, and they said, if only we could go back to Egypt, as we've heard before. They said, if only we had died there, or could die here in the wilderness, the Midbar. It's not easy to be the first generation into freedom. The reality that you are entering into is one of wilderness. We see in our parsha that this is true of the Israelites, and this was true of those who organized the first Pride celebration in the June of 1970. It's true of activists who fought for reproductive rights in this country. It's by definition true of activists of all kinds, because the nature of being the first generation is to enter into a wilderness that has not been traveled before, to traverse uncertainty and be challenged to maintain hope. The surface level lesson we might draw from the Israelites complaining is that we shouldn't complain. Instead, we should be grateful for what we have, which on one level is true. We learned that this group is punished bitterly because of their lack of faith. Because of their complaints, they receive perhaps the worst punishment, which is to not be able to enter the promised land. And we are supposed to learn from their mistakes and not complain. This is clear in God's message to the Israelites, God's wrathful anger in exclaiming, how long will this people spurn me, and how long will they have no faith in me, despite all of the signs that I've performed in their midst? I will strike them down and disown them, and make a nation far more numerous than they. In response to this threat, Moshe advocates on the Israelites' behalf, invoking the Shlosh Esrei Midot, God's 13 attributes of mercy. God is furious at this generation's lack of faith, but it seems that Moshe sees something different, sees the struggle and the fear behind this complaining. I don't begrudge the Israelites their protest and complaint or their weeping. It seems that they wanted their experience to be known, to be heard, for someone to acknowledge what they had been through. They were in need of pastoral care. This, I believe, they should not be punished for. And perhaps we can then read the curse not to enter into the land less like a punishment and more like an accurate reflection of the reality that the first generation of survivors, of activists, does not always reach the promised land. It's not something that can happen all at once in one generation. Any social change work takes immense patience, any journey from oppression into freedom. And like the leaders of the first Pride March, the Israelites were tasked with making sacrifices for future generations, their descendants being the ones who finally reached what they aspired to. This past Sunday, I was at a wedding for two friends and heard a blessing under the chuppah that was given to the couple as well as to their friends and community in attendance. That we should be the ancestors that our descendants deserve. This is how I feel about the first LGBTQ activists, even before Pride, people fighting in the ways that they could. And because of their sacrifices, I am free to love who I want to love publicly and largely without fear. I know that there are many people in this room and many people joining us virtually who were that first generation into freedom. The first generation into LGBTQ liberation, people who may not have thought they would have seen same-sex marriage legalized in their lifetime. They trekked through the wilderness trying to reach this point. At Svara's Queer Talmud summer program a few summers ago, I attended a session I will never forget called Queer Elders Telling Their Stories. The elders, some of whom weren't that elder but just a generation older, recounted the violence and the hate crimes and the discrimination they had faced even within the so-called progressive Jewish community. And the difference in our experience can be credited to their work. And in a sense, this right now is the promised land. But it's very difficult to say that because we know, we can see so plainly in the reality around us that once we get here, there is yet more to fight for. As we saw yesterday, heartbreakingly, terrifyingly, infuriatingly, it may even seem as if we're going backwards, as the Israelites felt. This decision to overturn Roe v. Wade was also referenced the decision that legalized same-sex marriage on a federal level as an example of another decision that might be overturned. We can see that this promised land is in no way stable and is not final. There's so much yet to strive for. When transgender young people die by suicide at an appalling rate, when trans women of color are murdered at an appalling rate, when the Supreme Court is headed in a direction to possibly overturn marriage protections, we still have so much work to do. And this is my charge to the younger generation, that we should be the ancestors that our descendants deserve. Not our biological descendants necessarily, but all of our queer descendants and all of those who come after us. And not only in regards to LGBTQ liberation, but in so many regards. In regards to fighting for a livable planet, and in regards to preserving the beauty of our Jewish tradition and transmitting it. We cannot turn back to the wilderness, even if it feels like that's where we're headed. Our Torah does not end with our entrance into the promised land. Our Torah ends on the precipice, and this not yet reaching is essential to our tradition. Our tradition is not one of triumphalism, but of continued striving. And perhaps we can trace that ending to our parsha, Shalach Lecha, in its reflection of the reality that our dreaming and our pursuing do not stop. We do not get to rest easy and content. That is a vision of the world to come, which we taste on Shabbat, but it's not a world that we can continually dwell in this lifetime. Instead, Judaism teaches us that we do not despair, and we do not stop striving for a future that will be better for our descendants than it was for us. There have been many times throughout history when it felt like we would never leave the wilderness or that we were going backwards, but part of what it means to be Jewish is that we do not stay there, nor do we stay content having reached some final destination. Instead, we refuse despair and continue to hope and strive. In this world, we must work to be the ancestors who make sacrifices. It is not a coincidence that Yehoshua ben Nun, one of the 2 scouts who, in the face of 10, dared to say it was not too great a risk to reach the Promised Land, who insisted that it was possible, he was the leader to fearlessly lead the people into the land after Moses' death. In our current world, in the news and in scientific reports, we have all sorts of scouts now giving us reports about the future that are not only terrifying but are true. But we can also choose to tell a different story at the very same moment, as Joshua did when he saw that despite its challenges, as Roly spoke about last night, he saw that Tova ha'aretz me'od me'od, the land is very, very good, even though he saw the same thing. And our future can be very good. We can both choose to hold this vision of the future, and at the same time, we can choose to listen to the complaints, the truth-telling of those who went first. May we hear the cries of the first generation and their truth. May we give them our attention and gratitude. May we embody their quality of fearlessness as we approach an uncertain future. May we honor their work by honoring love. May we celebrate the freedom that our ancestors, that our queer ancestors, that our Jewish ancestors have gifted us. And may we be worthy ancestors. May all human beings live in a world where we are free to love, free to make decisions for ourselves, free to exist as our true selves without fear. Ken yehi ratzon, may it be so. Shabbat Shalom.
יישר כוח, Grace. The reading this morning begins on page 851, chapter 15 of the book of Bamidbar, Numbers 15, verse 8. ויעזור ויגנו יושיע לכל החוסים בו ונאמר אמן. כל הבו גודל נתנו כבוד לתורה, יעמדו העולים והעולות לעלייה הראשונה. ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו, ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום. Call to the first aliyah, those who are celebrating on this Shabbat and this month, Pride, all LGBTQA members, non-members, anybody who wants to come to celebrate in this aliyah, please come for the first aliyah. Jerry. Come. Baruch Hu.
וכי תעשה בן בקר עולה עוזבה לפעלי נדר או שלמים לאדוני והקריב על בן הבקר מנחה סולת 3 עשרונים פלול בשמן חצי יין ויין תקריב לנסך חצי יין ישי ריח ניחוח לאדוני ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה
Amen.
Amen. Yasher Koach. I see there are many here who in Grace's language are part of the generation of the ancestors who fought this struggle, who were in the midst of this struggle since the 60s and the 70s, and so we know the effort and the dedication, the commitment that you have put into this. So we say Yasher Koach because we stand, all of us, on the shoulders of those, all of you and those people who fought with you, and all of your work, and all of your dedication, and all of your suffering, really, and all of your humiliation that you experienced. For all of that, we are grateful because we are in a much better place.
And I also want to say that this generation birthed the generation here in our community that feels safe to be who they are, and in Kadima, in our teen program, and the ways in which that our children, the generation that Grace spoke of, are able to be in so many ways not defined in one way or another and feeling free to search out who they are. May we be blessed and have the merit from your wisdom and from your work and from your stories to grow in this community in particular, a generation that feels that way and feels pride and powerful in who they are. And so we bless that for our youngins here, and we look forward to watching them rise too.
Amen.
Yamdu hare hatinoket Yarden lea bat beral nachum va'adam lalea shniha. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar ba'anu mikol ha'amim v'natu lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Kach yaseh lashor ha'echad o la'ayil ha'echad o la'aseh b'kvasim o ba'izim k'mispar asher ta'asu kacha ta'asu le'echad k'misparam kol ha'ezrach ya'aseh kacha et ele lahakriv yisherech nichoach l'Adonai וכי יגור איתכם גר, או אשר בתוככם לדורותיכם, ויעשה אישי ריח ניחוח לאדוני, כאשר תעשו כן יעשה. הקהל חוקה אחת לכם ולגר הגר, חוקת עולם לדורותיכם, ככם כגר יהיה לפני אדוני. תורה אחת ומשפט אחד יהיה לכם, ולגר הגר איתכם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורה אמת וחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Amen. Please rise. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah,
Bless this mother, Jennifer Louise Heatner, Yarden Leah Bat Beryl Nahum, and this father, Adam Arthur Howard, as well as their daughter, Hannah Bryn Heatner Howard, Hannah Beryl Bat Yarden Leah. As we welcome her into the covenant of Israel, let her name among the Jewish people be Hannah Beryl Bat Yarden Leah. Merciful God, grant that this child grow to maturity in good health and mind. May she be a sensitive and caring human being. May she be spared the ravages of war and violence, the bitterness of hatred. May she be a blessing to all who love her, to the people of Israel, and to all humanity. May she be blessed with long life, surrounded by her beloved family, and may her parents find wisdom and length of days to raise their daughter to the study and practice of Torah, deeds of compassion and righteousness, and to witness her achievement of love fulfilled. May she be capable of loving deeply, and may she be loved deeply. Kashem sheniknasa labrit ken tekanes Torah lechupa ulamaasim tovim. And let us say,
Amen. Oh, siman, siman tov. Kol Israel, Amen. Nay, na, nay, na. Hay, na, na, nay, ya, nay, na, nay, na. Hay, na, na, nay, ya, nay, na, nay, na. Hay, na, na, na. Ha, na, 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 na. You may be seated. יעמדו העולים והעולות לעלייה שלישית. We call to the third aliyah all those who mark a yortzeit this coming week. Please come up now. Hi, Jenny.
Hello.
Did you find the cloth? Did you find the scroll?
Not yet.
Okay.
Baruch hu et Adonai habarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai habarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, בבואכם אל הארץ אשר אני מביא אתכם שמה, והיה ביכולכם מלחם הארץ, תרימו תרומה לאדוני. ראשית הריסותיכם חלה תרימו תרומה, כי תרומת גורן כן תרימו אותה. מראשית הריסותיכם תיתנו לאדוני תרומה לדורותיכם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. יעמדו העולים והעולות לעלייה הרביעית. We call to the fourth aliyah. Those who wish to recite the Mishaberach for someone who's ill, or you may take one of the cards that have been passed around and stay where you are if you would like, and recite later, join in the recitation of the Mishaberach. You want to say hello, man? How are you feeling? Okay? That's why I'm here. Good. Baruch Adonai מבורך לעולם ועד. Amen.
אמן. וכי תשקעו ולא תעשו את כל המצוות האלה אשר דיבר אדוני אל משה. עת כל אשר ציווה אדוני עליכם ביד משה מן היום אשר ציווה אדוני והלאה לדורותיכם והיה אם מעיני העדה נעשתה לשגגה ועשו כל העדה פר בן בקר אחד לעולה לריח ניחוח לאדוני ומנחתו ונזקו כמשפט ושעיר עזים אחד לחטאת וכיפר הכהן על כל הדת בני ישראל ונסלח להם כי שגגה היא והם הביאו את קורבנם אישי לאדוני וחטאתם לפני אדוני על שגגתם ונסלח לכל הדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם כי לכל העם נשגגה
Amen. Len is going to say Birkat HaGomel as he recovers from his surgery.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hagor l'cham tova shechamon kol tov.
מי שגמרך כל טוב וגמרך כל טוב סלע.
Yes, invite everyone to say the names of their loved ones in the pause and the Misheberach. Misheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah u'yivarech v'rapeh את החולים. הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם להחזיקם ולרפאותם וישלח להם מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים רפואת הנפש רפואת הגוף בתוך שאר החולים וחזק את ידי העוסקים בצורכיכם שבעתי מלזעוק ופועה קרבו לבוא השב בגלו בזמן קריב ונאמר אמן. רפאת צירי הנאמן כי אתה רופא אומן
רפאת צירי אל נאמן כי אתה רופא אומן
את ראשי שור חשי ותן כוח בנפשי
את ראשי שור חלשי ותן כוח לנפשי. May be seated. Continue with the fifth aliyah, page 853, verse 27, 1527. יעמדו תומר שלמה בן יגאל ברוך וסיפי ושיר בן יהודה ואנינה לעלייה חמישית.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. ועם נפש אחת תחתה ושגגה והקריבו אז בת שנה והקריבה אז בת שנתה לחטאת וכיפר הכהן על הנפש השוגגת בחטאת ושגגה לפני אדוני לכפר עליו ונסלח לו. האזרח בבני ישראל לגבי הגר בתוכם תורה אחת יהיה לכם לעושה בשגגה והנפש אשר תעשה ביד רמה מן האזרח ומן הגר את אדוני הוא מגדף ונכריתה הנפש ההיא מקרב עמה, כי דבר אדוני בזה, ואת מצוותו הפר. תיכרת הנפש ההיא עוון עבר.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת חיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. We say ברוכים הבאים to Tomer and to Shir, who invited Paula to volunteer in Poland, offering medical services to Ukrainian refugees there. About a month ago, a few weeks ago, Paula was there. And we will hear from Tomer a little later about the effort, this initiative that he is leading called Lev Echad, One Heart. We'll hear about all the work that they're doing at the end of the Tefillah, all the work that they're doing on behalf of Ukrainian refugees. Yesher Koach and Baruchim Havayim. תעמוד חנה אלישבע בת שמואלה דוידה לעלייה שישית.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. ויהי בני ישראל במדבר, וימצאו איש מקושש עצים ביום השבת, ויקריבו אותו המוציאים אותו מקושש עצים אל משה ואל אהרון ואל כל העדה, ויניחו אותו במשמר, כי לא פורש מה יעשה לו. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, מות יומת האיש, רגום אותו באבנים כל העדה מחוץ למחנה. ויוציאו אותו כל העדה אל מחוץ למחנה, וירגמו אותו באבנים וימות, כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב, אמותינו שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, may the one who blessed our ancestors bless our beloved Grace, who has ascended today to honor God and the Torah on the Shabbat of pride. May the Holy One protect her as she completes this 2-year fellowship with us. She's been an extraordinary presence in our community. She has taught Torah. She has helped people in need. She has stepped up at every occasion to participate in strengthening our community with prayer, with teaching, with volunteering, with comfort to many families. We ask that God bless you in everything that you do, that God lead you to the end of your school, rabbinical school, so that you can celebrate your ordination next year and see the land ahead of you, the land of promise that will bring you fulfillment, that will bring you to do many wonderful things for the Jewish people and for humanity, with your grace, with your creativity, with your love for Torah and for the Jewish people and for humanity. May we have the blessing of see you achieve all those goals and do wonderful things in the world, and may you stay connected to this home. We hope that you feel that it's your home, and that we will see you and that we will celebrate all your successes together for many years. And let us say Amen.
Amen. Amen. Yesher Koach. Yeah.
I just want to extend the blessing back to the community and to Roly and Felicia, and just express my gratitude for your mentorship and your leadership and all that I've learned from you, and also just to express my gratitude to the community. I really can't imagine a better community in which to learn to be in this role. There's so much forgiveness and caring and nurturing here, and there's also so much honesty and so much honest feedback that has helped me grow in ways that I couldn't anticipate. And I feel blessed by all of the relationships that I've come to here, and so grateful for each of you. And so I want to bless you also, and see you soon. And Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
יעמדו רחל, בת אפרים ומרים, ושלום בן יחיאל ובעלה, וגם הרב חנה, בת שמואל ושושנה, ובן ציון, בן מנשה ואסתר, לעלייה שביעית. ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. אמן. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם, ויעשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלה, והיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב ואמותינו שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה. הוא יברך. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, bless these two couples, Seth and Rachel, and Joanna and Jeremy, as they come for an Aliyah with gratitude for all the blessings that their years together, 33 years, Rachel and Seth, 18 years, Joanna and Jeremy, all these years together have afforded them. May God protect them and deliver them. May each couple continue to enjoy God's blessings for many years to come. May God prosper their companionship, their love, their partnership, their families. May we celebrate with them in many years to come. They are really a strong and core part of this community. And may God keep them in joy and gladness, in peace and companionship. And let us say, Amen.
Mazal tov.
Mazal tov. Mazal tov.
Please rise. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, למד יברח ירושם ימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחייכם בית ישראל, בהגלה, ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם 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 ים. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתהלל, ויתהלל. יברכו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן מעלמה במרו אמן.
You may be seated. יעמוד נתן ישראל מיכה בן ציון והרב חנה מפטיר. So you see here one of the products of one of these couples. The beautiful fruit.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Ba'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'marta lehem v'yasu lahem tzitzit al kanfei bigdehem l'dorotam v'natnu al tzitzit al kanaf petil tachela v'haya lachem tzitzit uritem oto utzkartem ekol mitzvot Adonai v'yasitem otam v'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem asher tem zonim achareihem l'man tizkeru v'asitem ekol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'lohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotziti etchem mi'aretz Mitzrayim leot lochem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah.
Amen. Mishaberach. Avotinu Abraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Avotinu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless Natan, Jeremy and Joanna's son, who has been called to an Aliyah today in celebration of his birthday, his 14th birthday, in celebration of the year anniversary of his bar mitzvah, in celebration of his 8th grade graduation from Beit Rabban. He's the first class of the middle school of Beit Rabban, and of what should be an exciting summer ahead of you. May you be blessed with strength and your beautiful neshama, who gives in so many ways and has so much curiosity. May you have an amazing time in the wilderness this summer as you make your way to Ramah and the Rockies. May you have a lot of anticipation of what the next stage will be in store, and may you feel proud of what this last stage has been and all you've attained. We love that you continue to come back here and ascend to the Torah. May you have the gift of ascending, reading Torah, chanting Haftarah many times to come, and we celebrate many, many smachot together. Let us say, Amen.
Will you bring us a little bit of manna from the wilderness? Just to see what it tastes like. יעמדו העולים להגבהת ולגלילת התורה. Please rise. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה.
Here.
You may now be seated. The Haftarah that Natan will chant is on page 857.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzav divreihem hanemarim bemet. Baruch atah Adonai habacher b'torah Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'yehamet v'atzedek. Vayishlach Yoshua bin Nun min hashitim shnayim anashim meraglim cheresh limor lechu ra'u et haaretz v'yiricho vayelchu vayavo v'yidisha zonah u'shma rachav vayishkavu shama vayamar lamelech richo limor kinei anashim v'uheina halayla mibnei Yisrael lachpor et haaretz. Vayishlach me'elech Yericho el rachav limor hotzi hanashim habayim elayich asher ba'u lebeitech ki lachpor kol haaretz ba'u v'tikach ha'isha et shnei hanashim v'yitzmeno Vatomer Kehen, Ba'u Elai Hanashim, Velo Yadati Me'ayin Hema, Vayhi Ashar Liskor, Bachoshech Wanashim Yatsa'u, Lo Yadati Analchu Hanashim, Rifu Maher, Achrahem Kitasigum, Vehi Helatam Hagaga, Vadin Menem Ifishteh Ha'etz, Harakot La Al Hagag, Vanashim, Radfu Achrahem Derech Hayarden Al Hamavarot, Vashar Sagaru Achrei, Kasher, Yatsu Harfim Achrehem, Vehema Tari Mishkavun, Vehi, Alta Lehem Al Hagag, Vatomer El Hanashim Yadahati, Kinatan Adonai, Lachem et Haaretz, V'china Flaim Achem Aleinu, V'china Mogu, Kol Yishvei Haaretz Mipenechem, Kishamahanu at Asher V'shadonai et Mei Amsu V'pnechem, V'techem Mitzrayim, V'asher Asitem, Lishnei, Machem Mari, Asher Be'ever, Hayarden Lesichon Ulog, Asher Charmtem Otam, Vanishma Vaimas Lavenu Velokama Od Ruach, V'ish V'pnechem, Ki Adonai Elohechem Hu Elohim Mashamai Mimal, Val Aretz Mitachat, Ve'ataham, Hishavuna Li Badonai, Kiasiti Machem Chased, Asitem Gamatem et Beit Avi Chesed, Nintantem Li Odamed, V'chaitem et Avi Vidimihi, V'dachai V'achiotai V'et Kol Asher Lahem, V'tzaltem and Afshetenu Mimavet, V'yamru Lanashim, Nafshenu Tatechem Lamut, Im Lo Tagidu et Varenu Zem, V'ayam B'tid Adonai Lanu et Aretz, Fasinu Ima Chesed V'emet, V'toridem B'chavel Be'ad Achalon, Ki Beita B'kir Achoma, Uv'choma Hiyo Shavet, V'tomer Lahem Hahar Alechu, V'nifka'u B'chem Hartfim, V'nachbetem Shama Shloshad Yamim, Ad Shov Hartfim, V'char Tilchu L'darkechem, V'imuru Eleya Anashim, Neki'im Anachnu, Yishbatech Azeh Asher Yishbatanu, Hine, Anachnu Va'im Ba'aretz, Etikvat Chut, Hashani Hazeh Tishkeri, V'chalon Asher Deteinu Bo, V'ravich Meich V'dachayich, V'et Kol Beit Avich Tafsi Elai Chabaita, V'ayak Kol Asher Yitzei, Minaltei Beitech HaChutza, Damo Brosho V'anachnu Neki'im, V'chol Asher Yetach Babai, Damo Broshenu Im Yad Tiyabo, V'im Tagidit Devarenu Zeh, V'ayin Neki'im Mishvatech Asher Hishvatanu, V'tomer Kliverchem Kenhu, V'tishalchem V'yelchu, V'tikshor Etikvat Hashani B'chalon, V'yelchu V'yavo Rahara V'yishvu Sham Shloshad Yamim, Ad Shavu Hardfim, V'yvakshu Hardfim, B'chol Derech V'lo Matzau, V'yashuvu Shnei Hanashim V'yardu Me'ahar, V'yvaru V'yavo El Yoshua Binun, V'yisapru Lo et Kol HaMotzot Otam, V'yimru El Yoshua Kinatan Adonai, V'yadinu et Kol HaAretz, V'gamna Mogu, Kol Yishvei Haaretz Mi Panenu. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol amim, tzadik b'chol orot, helanem ad harmer v'yaseh, hameneberim kayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek. Neman atu Adonai Eloheinu, v'nemanim derecha, v'devarachad midvarecha, hor lo yoshiv reikam, ki el melech neman v'rachaman ata, baruch et Adonai, helaneman b'chol devarav. Rachahem, al tzion ki ubeit chayinu, v'aluvat nefesh toshi, abim herabi amenu, baruch et Adonai, mitzamech tzion uvaneha. Samcheinu, Adonai Eloheinu, be'el Yahon avdi avdecha, u'malchut beit avi meshichecha, bim herayavo, ve'yagel libenu, al gisol yeshev zar v'lo yincholu et echarim et kavodo, ki b'shem kodshech nishpat alo, shelo yichve nero l'olam va'ed, baruch et Adonai, Magen David. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ביום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמלאכה לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יברך שכם בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
We turn now to Birkat HaChodesh, which is on page 180. We turn now to the Kavanah as we anticipate the month. We join together in the English. May it be your will, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, grant that this coming month bring us goodness and blessing and bestow on us a long life, a life that is peaceful, a life that is good, a life that is blessed, a life with proper sustenance, a life with physical vitality, a life conscious of heaven's demands and wary of sin, a life free of shame and reproach, a life of abundance and honor, a life of love of Torah, conscious of heaven's demands, a life in which the worthy desires of our hearts are fulfilled. Amen.
Amen. מי שעשה ניסים לאבותינו, מי שעשה ניסים לאמותינו, וגאל אותם מעבדות לחירות, הוא יגאל אותנו בקרוב, ויקבץ מלאכינו מארבע כנפות הארץ. חברים, כל ישראל, ונאמר אמן. ראש חודש תמוז יהיה ביום רביעי וביום חמישי, הבא עלינו ועל כל ישראל לטובה.
ראש חודש תמוז יהיה ביום רביעי וביום חמישי, הבא עלינו ועל כל ישראל לטובה.
חדשהו הקדוש ברוך הוא עלינו ועל כל עמו בית ישראל לחיים ולשלום, לשמחה, לששון ולשמחה, לישועה ולנחמה, ונאמר אמן.
Seder Achnasat Torah, page 183. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkav shemo levado, hodo haleretz v'shamayim, vayarem kerem lehamo, tila nechon, chasidav, lifnei Yisrael ham kirovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
מזמור לדוד, הבו לאדוני בנביאים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, כל אדוני על המים, אל הכבוד קירים אדוני על המים, על המים, על המים רבים, על המים, על המים, על המים רבים. כל אדוני בהכל, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון, לסיריון כמו
Please remain standing. Chatzi Kaddish, page 184 or page 428.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועל מה דברת ירצה וימליך מלכותך
בחייכם יומכם ובחיי כל בית ישראל ובזמן קריב דיברו אמן יש מרבה בברך לעלם ולעלם היה יתברך ויתפעל ויתומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי לקודשה ברכו נעלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תוש וחתה ונחמתה תמידם בעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
Musaf Amidah, page 185 or page 430.
Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor HaNorah, El Elyon, Goel Chasadim Tovim, Bekonei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot B'imahot, U'mevii Goel B'nei Bnei Helem, למען שמו ביהבה מלך עוזר חוקנו משיח מגנו אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד זרעו
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיים מתים אתה רב להושיע מוריד הטל מחלקה לחיים בחסד מחיים מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומציל אסורים ומחיים אמונתו נשארת אחר מחמוך בגבורות ומידות ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים.
נריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות ולא כל הארץ כבודו מלא עולם משרתיו שואלים זה לזה היה מקום כבודו לעומתם ברוך יומנו ברוך כבוד ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים ביחונם המייחדים שמו ערב הבוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים באהבה שמה אומרים
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד
הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי אל מלך גדול קדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Shalom, page 203 or 506.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה כרותה וימליך מלכותה וחייכון וביומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל בעלה בזמן קריבים אמרו אמן יש שמי רבה מדברה בעלמא דברה יתפרח
ישתבח יתפאר ותרומה וינשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ותהלל שמי לקודש בריחו לעילה מנקו ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמי רן רבה ויאמרו
אמן
תתקבץ אותנו ואותון דכל ישראל קודם אבון דבשמיא ואימרו
אמן יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמרו אמן We're going to now hear from Tomer Dror. We're going to interrupt now and hear him for a few minutes, so then when the kids come, we can be ready for Enkel Eloheinu, and they don't have to be here while Tomer speaks. Tomer Dror is a strategic consultant and political campaigner for candidates and parties in Israel and in Eastern Europe. He is also the co-founder of Lev Echad, One Heart, an emergency crisis and aid organization that has been operating for the last 17 years. Lev Echad specializes in recruiting and operating volunteers in national emergencies, using accumulated experience and unique operating procedures that enable the organization to respond quickly. To date, tens of thousands of volunteers have passed through the organization, and it has operated in various security and civilian emergencies in Israel. In recent months, since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, Tomer has been riding the One Heart activity in Ukraine. Lev Echad has flown more than 150 volunteers to Ukraine and Poland, rescued dozens of Jews and Israelis from the war, and provided humanitarian aid to tens of thousands of refugees at border crossings. And this is where Paula Rakov has volunteered, and she has connected us with Tomer so that we can hear about his work and the work of Lev Echad. Alongside all this work, he's an activist. He's the co-founder and chairman of the board of Tzionei Derech, which is a project initiated and run by students that aims to build a bridge between Haredi, ultra-Orthodox, and non-Haredi populations, and to help and encourage ultra-Orthodox people who have chosen to pursue an academic education. Tomer has a BA in Philosophy and Political Science from the Hebrew University. He's a graduate of the En Prat Pre-Army Academy in Social Leadership. He lives in Yerushalayim with his family, and now we're honored to have him come up and share about his work.
Can you hear me like this as well? It's okay. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and the service was just beautiful. Thank you. Following few minutes, I will describe what we did to the date and our plans to the future. I'll start with introducing myself. Just shortly, I'm Tomer, I'm 35 years old. As been said, I live in Jerusalem. I'm a father to 4. Together with me here is also Shil. She's over there. After I'll finish, she'll add a bit. She's a medical student, 24, and she was with Paula as well, now in Ukraine and Poland. Our story starts 2005, when we founded One Heart. I was 18, and I was a student in the Pre-Army Academy, the Academy for Leadership and Prat. And in 2005, a big thing happened in Israel. It was the disengagement from Gaza and northern Samaria. And we were a few graduates that understood that you can be pro the plan. Personally, I was pro, others was against, but there is like a humanitarian crisis in it with thousands of people that are going to lose their home. And no country can handle this kind of a crisis without a volunteering aid force. And this is the minute when we went out to Shabbat, we came back to the pre-academy, to the Mechina, and 5 of us together just decided that it's time to act. And we went to the south, where the people were being evacuated to, and we started One Heart. Back then, we were just 5 people with our mentor, and only 2 weeks after, we were already operating over 1,000 volunteers, and to the end, it was Hanukkah, almost 4 months after, we were able to recruit and activate over 10,000 volunteers, and we were the main force, main aid force that helped those people in various of things. Then I was recruited to the army like any Israeli at the age of 18 or 19, and in 2000, just a year and a half after, it was less than a year after, it was Lebanon War II. And the other alumni and some of our staff in Enprat decided to take the infrastructure that we built for the disengagement for Gaza and to activate it for those that were in trouble now because of the war at North. This is the minute when One Heart became from just a youth movement to a youth movement that acts as a humanitarian crisis aid. Ever since, we were acting in over 10 different crises. Unfortunately, Israel has a lot of emergencies, security emergencies and civilian. And we were fortunate enough to recruit and activate over 50,000 volunteers in Israel only. But at the past 4 months, I am in Ukraine, not in Israel, so I'm either in Ukraine or in Poland. And I guess this is what you wanted to hear, and this is what I'll share, why we are there. So the continue of the story is 2014. At 2014, the president of Ukraine, back then it was Poroshenko, not Zelensky, that everybody now know from the news. He's calling the head of my academy of Enprat, Erez Eshel. He's a professional to build leadership, on building leadership, and he tells him he needs help, and he wants him to come. Erez comes to the president, and the president tells him, Erez is a major in the army, and then the president tells him, hello, Mr. Eshel, I was told you know how to build an army because you come from Israel and you're a major and Israel has a great army. We need an army now. It was when Crimea was invaded by Russia, and I need your help to build an army. And then Erez tells him, it's something that it's not easy to tell to a president. He tells him, you don't have a nation. How can you have an army? Let's start with building a nation. And this is when we started Ukrainian leadership academies, which are parallel to the Israelis, where I was a student. It's a non-Jewish thing. Any Ukrainian can go there. Today, there is 8 branches in Ukraine, in many cities, over 2,000 alumni of ULA, Ukrainian Leadership Academy. And this is where our story continues. Putin invaded Ukraine at 24th of February. 28th of February, the first delegation led by Erez was already in Lviv and in Kiev and in Poland, starting our operation there. To date, I would say almost 200 volunteers flew to Poland or Ukraine under one heart, and hundreds of others flew there with our support and were guided by me or getting my my instructions and how to act there. But why? What happened that we decided, we're acting in Israel, we have, thank God, a lot to do in our country. What happened that we decided to evolve into an international force aid and to act in Ukraine? So there are 3 reasons for that. First reasons is that we have friends in Ukraine. And when developing leadership, you know that when you have a friend in trouble, you need to help him. It's part of leadership. So those that we founded the academies with are our friends, and they were in trouble. This was first reason, but not the most important one. Then the second reason was that the state of Israel was not founded just as a safe house for Jews. Anyone who tells that either don't know the Torah or don't know history. One of the reasons that we have State of Israel is to have a safe home for all Jews over there, all around the world. But ever since we went out of Egypt in the Torah, and even with the biggest Zionist thinkers, none of them would say we need a Jewish state, so it would just be home, safe home for Jews. All will have a reason. So today, with what we read in Parashat Shlach Lecha, we read one of the reasons, just before God orders the people of Israel to go to Israel. He tells them how to act to a stranger, right? This is what we read today. And the reason why we need to know to act to the stranger the same as we are acting to ourselves is because we were strangers in Egypt. And this is the memory that we need to hold. But all of the thinkers, from the Jewish thinkers, the Zionist thinkers, politicians to the beginning of the country, accepted one term. It was Or LaGoyim. Israel should be a Or LaGoyim, a light to the nations. So this is the second reason. And here is where I share with you that at the last 4 months when I was in Ukraine and in Poland, I would say 80% of the volunteers were either Jews or Israelis. So when you walk near Medica, which is the border point where you cross to Ukraine, you can hear nowadays, even Polish people saying Shalom, because they only see Israelis for the last months, and they only see Jews. And the reason is because we all have in our blood this light to the nation. So this was the second reason, because when someone that believes in light to the nations sees morally evil against good, then he has to act. And we all have also the other memory of 8 years ago, where just in the same land of Ukraine and Poland, my great-grandfather, this is where they were slaughtered. And back then, nobody stood for us. It was only us. So one would say, nobody stood for you, why should you stand for them? We are saying the opposite. Nobody stood for us, we will stand for them, because that's the real meaning of Or LaGoyim. It's not just doing for yourself. It's setting the example for what they should have done 8 years ago and didn't, and do it now as a nation, or at least, if not as a nation, then as a civilians of the nation. So this is the second reason. And then the third, and about this I hope that she will speak more, and you have your community member, Dr. Rakov, that can, I think, share the same. Anyone who visits Ukraine or the borders, he comes back with a more, I'm not sure if matured is the right word, but a stronger Jewish identity and a stronger Israeli identity. And this is one of our goals, to build a stronger Israel and a stronger Jewish people. So this was the third reason. And then we decided we're going to Ukraine. And ever since, as I said, over 200 people flew to Ukraine. But we went, and this is where I want to maybe share some photos with you to show. We went with a unique, I would say unique mission, because we have this network inside Ukraine of the Ukrainian leadership academies, 8 branches, 2,000 alumni, and hundreds of students. We understood we need to take our knowledge, our tools, what we practiced for years in Israel, and demonstrate it to Ukraine so they will know how to build their own one heart. So for the longer future, we can't always flew Israelis and Jews or whoever to Ukraine to aid. They have to have their own force. So this is where our story inside Ukraine begins, and afterwards I would pass this photo, I guess, with you. But the bunch of people you see here, I will just shortly explain. It's approximately, in that room there were 12 Ukrainians. Okay, they're all Ukrainians, not a single Jew, but me and 2 of my colleagues that came with me there. And you can see all of them are wearing a One Heart uniform. It has even the Star of David in it. But this is the meeting where we founded One Heart Ukraine. And this was the first mission, to found a local movement of Ukrainians, of thousands of volunteers. And today, there is this One Heart Ukraine. They are functioning hundreds of volunteers every day. But when we came to found One Heart Ukraine, we couldn't put our eyes away of that. And this is the first days of the crisis. So at the beginning of the war, and this is one photo, I'm sure you've seen many of them in the news. To the beginning of the war, millions of people lost their houses. So if our story begins in 2005, where 8,000 people lost their houses, then it continues now, where approximately 14 million Ukrainians lost their houses. 7 million of them left Ukraine, fled, most of them, by the way, to Ukraine, 4 million almost to Ukraine. But the other 7 are what called in the news IDPs. It's those that lost their houses but decided to stay inside Ukraine. And they desperately need our help as well. So we see this picture and those people in the border, and we understand we have another mission. Provide immediate humanitarian aid, an immediate response, helping those refugees. And then we go to the borders, and we just, the very first thing we are doing is, giving them a hug, honestly. By the way, this was the same story 2005. The first thing is that, so people were telling us, you will only do mess because you don't speak Russian, you don't speak Ukrainian, how can you help? And then we told them something that has been repeated over and over again, and I believe I even said it to Dr. Rakov before she came, is that we speak the language of the heart, and this is an international language that anyone can understand. And I think this picture examples the best the language of the heart that we spoke for the past few months in Poland and Ukraine. When we come to the border, at first we see that there is a lot of help on one side of the border, on the Polish side, but nobody crosses the border to Ukraine because everybody afraid. And it's, it's a border walk cross, so it's 100 meters. But even the Jewish agency or the JDC volunteers are not crossing. They are unallowed. They have this paragraph in the agreement they are signing, do not cross. So what we are doing for the first, I would say, 2 months is only going with supermarket carts, taking all the humanitarian stuff that are in Poland, moving it to the other side, because you can wait on the other side for 3 days. For me, when I first came there, I was totally amazed. You are waiting for days, and the temperature when I came to Ukraine first was more or less minus 11 Celsius. I'm not sure how much is it in Fahrenheit, but it's extremely cold. And I see mothers and mothers holding their kids in this temperature. And I'm thinking of my own kids. So whenever I have 4 kids, as I said, the older is 5, the youngest is 9 months. whenever I take any of them outside bath, if I just hold him, and I don't put a blanket or something on him, then my wife will say, you can never shower him again, right? The mothers here absolutely knows the thing. And I come there and I see a mother holding her kid that is a few months old, minus 11 Celsius, European, Polish cold, and she doesn't even have a blanket. And she can wait there for 3 days. So the first thing we are doing is we're just coming, and fortunate enough, because we have on our vest, here we have the Israeli flag, and here we have one heart. Somehow, I don't know, it's a miracle, but anyone who sees the Israeli flag, just let you go. So we are going there, and the first thing we are doing is going all the way back and forth and taking people out, taking those mothers, trying to find who is the one in most trouble and taking him out of the line, just to make it easier for them. Maybe I think you can show also this one. This is a picture from the biggest refugee center in Poland, Tesco. And you can see here, and this is just one example, you can see it everywhere, but just to understand what the Jewish people in the state of Israel has done lately in Poland and in Ukraine. So the kids, they are painting the flag of Israel just next to, I need to wrap up. Okay, so 2 minutes. As you wish. So 2 minutes, I'll wrap up. I need to finish now. Okay, as you wish.
So I asked Tomer to pause here because we have the kids waiting. We're going to finish the tefillah, go to Kiddush, and then come back and hear from both of them about to continue the sharing of this incredible work that they're doing. So let's finish the tefillah, get the kids in, En Kelohenu, and then we go to Kiddush and we come back here.
Page 204, page 508.
בארדון הכל, לתת גדולה. לא עשינו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעונות מתחת יכירו וידעו כל יושבי תבל כי לך תכרע כל ושכון בתורתך אדוני כתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ יום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד
turn now to Mourners Kaddish and invite those who are in mourning or marking a yard site to remain standing. All the children can be seated, and all those who are on Zoom are invited to unmute. Yitgadal v'kadash shemei Rabbi.
Amen.
V'amad yivrach yurteh v'yamlich machuteh. V'chayechon v'yamechon u'chayeh l'chol Beit Yisrael. B'galal v'zman kariv v'imru.
Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbi mevarach le'alam u'l'almei almaya.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shemei l'kudesha b'rechu.
Amen.
Le'ela minko berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'miran v'ama v'yamru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom.
Amen.
Be seated. Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Happy Pride to everyone. We extend our condolences to Lisa and Lee Shallop and their children, Samantha, Allison, and David, on the death of Lisa's father, Stephen Auerbach, and we wish a Mazal Tov again to Jen Heatner and Adam Howard on the naming of their daughter, Hannah Bryn, who's named for Adam's dad who recently died, and Jen's parents as well. And so Mazal Tov. This evening we'll gather at 9:25 for Havdalah, and Grace is going to be leading Havdalah with also in the spirit of what's been going on to add some reflections about this moment in time with the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I promise you that the NCJW, National Council of Jewish Women, has been leading the effort in the Jewish community and also in the interfaith community. They've been putting out a lot of resources and had a vigil yesterday. And as things unfold, we'll continue to update the community on how we'll participate. We're not going to back down, and we're going to keep fighting for what we need to fight for. There's a lot to fight for right now, and we have to stand up for that. So please keep posted. Because of Shabbat, we weren't able to participate today, but we will continue to participate and engage in this effort. There are a number of other things coming up. I'm not going to announce everything. I just want to point to the film series that's taking place, launching this week, Thursday, about the cost of the fashion industry, which has a profound cost around workers, etc. So please pay attention. The primary elections are on Tuesday. Please vote. August 23rd. And it is membership season, so if you have not renewed yet, please do so. And if you have never been a part of a community, but you've been participating, whether online or in person, now's a beautiful time to become a part of the community as we move into the summer and anticipate the new year. So I think we'll end there. We'll end with Adon Olam on page 211 or 514.
And after Kiddush, we're going to have Kiddush outside. And after Kiddush, those who wish to come back and continue to hear the story of One Heart and the work in Ukraine, please come inside and we'll continue. 211.
Adon Olam Hashem Alef B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra V'Eit Nasa V'Chepso Kol Hazai Melech Shemo Nivra V'Acharei Kichot HaKol Levado Yimloch Torah V'Hu Haya
והוא אחד ושני להמשיל לו להחבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה
והוא עיני וחי גורלי בצור חבלי בעת צרה
והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אפקיד רוחי בעת תשעה בעירה ואם רוחי גבייתי פניו אליך ויעשה לך שלום ויעשה לך שלום 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 ויעשה לך Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Everyone's invited to go outside for Kiddush. You can let it go, Eleanor. It's okay.
This one is on, right? So I'll turn this off. Open as well or not? I can use this one, right? No problem. No problem. I'll start by saying I'm going to make it a bit brief, and anyone who wants can join us because there are some people waiting for us for a lunch in Dr. Paula Zrakov's house. So it was able to stay now, but we'll speak briefly, and then she will speak, and we're going there, and anyone who wants can just join us to Paula's house. So where we stopped was the point where I said it was a real emergency and humanitarian crisis, where we saw those mothers and people in lines, and we understood that we have to provide them immediate response. And for over a month, this is the only thing we did. We were shortening the lines for them and moving the groceries, hot food, blankets, warm clothing from one side to the other, just to help those that are in trouble on the other side. But this war is not a short one. We're already in it for over 4 months, and I'll speak about it in the end. I believe it's going to take longer, unfortunately. So we saw in our eyes the change from an emergency to what we call a routine of emergency, in which the refugee doesn't need just hot tea, but it needs much more than that, because he stays in Poland, and he has no father. I'm talking about the kids now. And so his home broke. He has no school, and is in a very fragile situation. So in that moment, when we understood we're going to move from an emergency to a routine of emergency, Vered, one of our volunteers, started thinking, what should we do? And this is the point where she decides. So how it works is that the refugee waits in the line, and they can wait, as I said, 3 days, and then they end the line. Even them, so the first refugee I take out of the line, they're telling me, okay, but where are you taking us? And I'm telling them, just to the end of the line, you'll just wait less, I'll help you, don't worry. And they said, yes, but what's waiting for me on the other side? And I said, there is a bus. Yeah, but where does it take me? So even them, they don't know where does the bus takes them. But Vered understands that, and she leads a delegation of Israeli volunteers. And she decides, I will act as a refugee, I'll go on the bus. And I understand what's the routine of refugee is, what's the routine of emergency. And she goes on the bus, and this is how she discovers a place named Kolchova. Kolchova is a mall just like here and we have in New York and in everywhere. But it's an abandoned mall that the Polish government transformed into a refugee house. So instead of shops, you had like dozens of beds there. And the refugees were going to Kolchova and staying there for days, for weeks, sometimes for months. So Vera discovers this first place, and then when she gets there, we start and provide them education support. So we take the kids out, and we play with them. And sometimes it's the first time in months, anytime that I go, she witnessed it, anytime that I go to any refugee house, without doing anything, I don't need to speak even. I'm not saying hello. I have 3 kids hanging on my legs. The only reason is I look similar to their father, and they haven't seen him for months. So they are coming, and we are working with the kids, giving the mother some relief. And those droning that I've shared with you earlier, the picture of the droning, are droning from those kind of centers where they see Israeli guys, almost only Israeli guys, with the Star of David. So they draw the flag of Ukraine that they know, and the Star of David and the flag of Israel. So thanks to Vered, we discovered Kolchova, and then we discovered Tesco that I mentioned, and we discovered a refugee house in Radmino, and refugee house in Boriton, and refugee house in Preshmichel, and in many, many places, and also refugee houses from the Ukrainian side. And we act on those houses for months, doing more education rather than just supporting humanitarian aid. This was the first transaction from an emergency to a routine of emergency. And here is the point, just a minute before I pass it over to Shir, so she will speak more about what we are doing now and how can you also be part of it. This is the point where I want to say this war is not going to end very soon, judging by all of my rational tools. And it's also a point where I want to say it's a global war. So I said the reasons in which we decided to evolve One Heart from an Israeli movement to to act internationally. But we are acting internationally under the name of Israel. And the reason is that the war between Putin or Russia to Ukraine, it's not a war between two nations. It's a war between two ideas. It's the idea of freedom of the Western world and the idea of dictatorship. So during the ceremony today, and we have the lights behind us, and you mentioned it a lot. So in Russia, there is no debate about LGBTQ, right? In Russia, they hang people for their sexual beliefs or actions. And this is the war. So you can have this debate about rights, and we have in Israel many debates, and you have now in the state a huge debate about abortions, right? But you do it in a democratic way. And this is not the way Russia acts. And this is the war. It's a war between values of freedom of the Western world to dictatorship. And this war, it's not a local war. It's a global war where we all need to take a stand. And we all need to stand by freedom and to stand by those values. So nowadays, from what I've seen in the last months in Ukraine, mostly, unfortunately, the Ukrainian people are those who stand between dictatorship and freedom. So some provide help, and it's good, but I think anyone who is a freedom fighter, freedom lover, who sees himself as part of the Western world should understand where we want to see ourselves in this war. And I can only say that, our perspective, and this is what we're working on now, the winter will be very tough. I don't know how many of you knows, but Russia has two main assets. The one is wheat, which also Ukraine has, and this is the reason many places now raises the price of food and bread in particular. But the other is gas. He can freeze Europe if he wants. And if he acts as hard as he is acting now at the winter, then it's going to be a disaster. And just, I sum up with that before inviting Shir. Nowadays, although the news are not speaking about it that much, every day, between 200 to 400 civilians and soldiers are being killed in Ukraine. Every day. News are not speaking about it anymore. It's not in their interest. I don't know why. Or I know and I don't want to speak about it. But the war is going on, and it will continue. And this is the reason why we have the missions forward. And those are 3 missions. 2 I will describe shortly, and the third I think Shir will speak better. One is the mayor of Lviv reached out to us, and he wants to prepare his city to a routine of emergency. He wants to prepare it, first of all, in the term of education. So in Israel, we have protected school. If Nasrallah decides to bomb Kiryat Shmona or even Haifa, each of our cities has a protected school where you can continue studying. You have a shelter and the kids studying and nothing can hurt them. Nothing like this in Lviv. I don't know if we have the photo here, but I could show you how a shelter looks like. In Lviv, it looks like a bunker from World War II. It's not a shelter, as you maybe know, here in New York or in Israel. So first thing is to help the mayor of Lviv start this educational year and prepare himself for the future. And the second is providing the kids in Poland and Ukraine, the refugee kids. So this is how a shelter looks like. Have you, any one of you ever seen a shelter looks like this? So we did this, we call it sukkah, I always say like kishut. What's the word for kishut? I don't know. It's something we put in our sukkot. So we did it with them to prepare the way the shelters looks like. But this is how it looks like. He doesn't have real shelters to protect himself if Putin decides to bomb Lviv, and he might decide to do that. Not only the 7 or 8 times he did it so far, but massive bombing. And the second thing is providing summer schools for the refugees, which is an immediate response. They need it. They're going to be out of educational frame very soon. They're going to their summer vacation. So I guess many of your kids or grandchildren are going to 7 weeks of a summer camp, right? So they have nothing. And we want to build a frame for them. And this is the second mission. And then the third is continue and sending delegations, professional delegations of medical doctors like the one Dr. Paula initiated, founded, but also just a normal, not unprofessional volunteers delegation. This is the third mission that we're going to continue with, and I think this is the best place where she can just continue and describe her experience and the missions forward. And thank you very much for listening.
Can you hear me? Okay, so, right, okay, I'm sorry. So, thank you for listening, and my name is Shir. I'm a medical student from Israel. I'm 24. I'm a third generation to Holocaust survivor. And actually, first of all, I wanted to say that earlier the Rabbi said that we invited Dr. Paula Rakov to volunteer with us, and I want to, which is true, but I think I want to say that Dr. Paula was much more active than, she's not here anymore, but she was much more active than just receiving an invitation. She initiated the idea of American Jews coming to volunteer with us with Lev Echad, one heart, and she connected between people and between her friends, between them to us, and they came to volunteer with us. Some of them were doctors, some of them were families, younger people, young adults, older people, and they did a lot in the refugee centers. They gave them hugs, they gave them joy, they built a playground for them, and they planted a garden. They made a barbecue together for a holiday that they have in Ukraine. And basically, they gave them a sense of hope and a feeling that everything will be okay. And I want to go back to what I said first, that I'm a third generation to a Holocaust survivor. My grandfather was born in Romania, and he was exiled to Ukraine. And he has been there during the years of the Holocaust, and it was very complicated for me, as well as for many other Israeli people. And I think that when we came there, when I say we, I'm talking about the Israeli volunteers and the non-Israeli volunteers. When we come there and giving these children and these women and everyone a sense of hope and joy and everything we can, and presenting and coming on behalf of the Jewish people and the Jewish nation, we're putting ourselves on the right side of the history, and these children will remember this period of their time like that, and they will tell their grandchildren and other stories, stories that we didn't hear, because like Thomas said earlier, no one stood up for us, but we are standing. And I think this is the place of the whole Jewish nation, and not only for Israeli people who wants to go, because we are part of the same nation. We have the same history, and that's why now we are the third project that we're doing. In relation to what Tomer said earlier, it's sending another delegations. Some of them are professional. We have a psychologist and a social workers delegation coming up soon. We have another medical delegation at the end of July, and we have people without any specific specialty, any professional skills. They just want to come to help, to give a hand, and to give hope. And that's what we're doing now, till something will change, and we will continue doing this and being present there as Jews and as part of this nation. And you're welcome to join, to support us, and we are here. And thank you so much. for hearing us. Shabbat Shalom.